we take a quick pause, and then when we're ready, we say, welcome to Startup Talk. I'm the startup coach, founder of TorontoStarts, Canada's startup and entrepreneur community. And with me today is George Boutsalis, co-founder of CAST. And CAST is the objective assembly of public opinion. Is that correct?
That is correct. Craig, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Big fan, and looking forward to chatting with you.
And did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You did, which a lot of people, honestly, I've heard so many different ways it's been said, but first shot. So congratulations. I really appreciate that.
I usually ask on the pre-conversation chat, but we just got into chatting about so many other things. So I looked at it up. Yeah. Let's just take a shot, see what happens. So tell us about CAST.
So as you said, our vision is to be the objective assembly of public opinion. And what that means is our goal is to bring objectivity back to social media as a whole. One of the main reason this platform started and was founded was myself, my co-founders got really tired of being served kind of subjective and one-sided narratives, one-sided data, things that fit certain agendas. You know, you watch the news and one channel has 60% of people think this, but the other channel thinks 80% think this. And I mean, that I'm not a mathematician, but that equals more than 100%. So, you know, we start to wonder, who are these people polling? Who are they asking? What's the demographic? What camp do they fall in? Take it a step further to social media. When you see trending topics, very well could be the most popular things people are talking about, but it's very hard to see what side people fall in. Is it trending for reason X or reason Y? And we just felt that, we want to bring people objective data, bring them facts, let them think for themselves, let them formulate their own opinions, and just kind of bring some healthy discourse back to social media platforms.
And I think that's great. I think we've all seen a lot of one-sided media these days, and ganging up on political opinions you don't agree on. And I don't know. I'm old school. I've been around a long time, and I remember when fighting for freedom of speech, and it seems like it's disappearing a little bit, and it upsets me somewhat.
Sure.
But at the same time, is it a pendulum, or is this, is it technology companies like you that are going to bring it back?
Well, that's what we're hoping for. And obviously, to be clear, we're not trying to create the Wild West and let people just say whatever they want. There's a fine line. Like our community guidelines and what we're about is, obviously keeping our users safe and creating a safe space to share ideas and discuss and have discourse. That being said, the standard things, inciting violence, bigotry, all of these sorts of things that are pervasive issues, well, we don't tolerate those or allow those. But on the other hand, to your point, it feels like discourse and free speech is kind of getting suppressed a little bit. Somebody might ask a question online that somebody interprets the wrong way and has their feelings hurt by the question, or it sounds insensitive. How do we know that person was trying to be insensitive? Maybe they just didn't know, couldn't phrase their words properly, couldn't articulate. And it seems like a lot of piling on, a lot of tribalism, groupthink is occurring. And you can't ask questions around sensitive topics anymore. You can't share opinions and ideas that are contrarian. People kind of want to, it's kind of that got you mentality, and to use, for lack of a better term, cancel culture. But these things lead to a friction of participation. People don't feel safe anymore, don't feel they can be their authentic selves. They might be judged for what they say. They might face backlash. We want to try to remove all these friction points. That's the main premise of what we're trying to do, is remove the friction of participation in online conversations.
Yeah, and when I say freedom of speech, I'm not a fan of the Wild Wild West either, and we'll get into it a little bit later. But I also think that there's room for public discourse. If someone mentions a statistic, are you not allowed to follow up and say, where'd you get the statistic? Can I see about that study? I want a little bit more information. It seems like this day, if you follow up, you're in a different category of people that no one wants to deal with you. I'm just trying to gather the facts, because a lot of times when you're having a conversation, I've heard different things than you've heard, and you've come up with the statistics. Like, great, I haven't heard that. I'm hearing different statistics, so I'd love to know where your source is, what that information is. Do I need to adjust my point of view on all this stuff? And it's only through healthy debate, people who have different sides do you expand your point of view. And I think with a lot of what I see, it's all one-sided, and it's because our echo chamber of social media and media is we've picked the sources that we like that agree with our personal opinion and our points of view, and it's kind of feeding that back to us, which is good to a point, but if you want to grow, don't we want to listen to other cultures, other points of view? Why do you do this versus that? Why do you, I don't know. I can't think of all the different types of things, but it's through healthy debate that and discussion that we grow as humans and as a planet, as a species. At least, isn't that the point of communication?
Yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, this might be a vague and a bit of a generalization, but to my knowledge, the way inventions have come about, some of the greatest technology in the world, how social issues get solved is just somebody asking, how can we do it better? Why does it have to be this way? Why can't it be this way? Um, and when people start to feel like they can't ask why and how online anymore, that's a problem. That's you're having potentially groundbreaking ideas suppressed. People don't feel safe being themselves. Um, and it just it creates this negative feedback loop. To your point, to jump back a little bit about seeing one-sided, yeah, it can be great for some things. I mean, if I like sports, I want to be fed sports all the time. If I like NASA and SpaceX, great, fill my timeline with that. But when you're getting served one side of an argument and you just perpetually chase that side, I mean, there's a term, confirmation bias, and then it just promotes groupthink, and people get married to their ideas. Like you said, I mean, for myself, I'm a curious person. I don't want to find out how I'm right. I want to find out why I'm wrong. And it feels like that doesn't happen. Sorry, actually, let me back up and preface that. Not always. Sometimes I like to know that I'm right as well, naturally. But, it's you should be looking for consenting opinions. You should say, okay, I believe this, but everyone else believes that. Well, why do they believe that? Am I missing something here? And, bringing that transparency and serving people both sides of the conversation helps promote that and encourage that. And that's what we want to try and stimulate.
That's great. So let me ask you a little question about what were you like growing up? I like to know a little bit about the entrepreneur before they became an entrepreneur. Were you a handful for your parents? Were you studious? Were you into music, sports, socializing? Who was George as a young lad?
Uh, I'm gonna give you my perspective. My parents watching this, or my friends might tell you otherwise, but I think naturally I was very curious and inquisitive. I to a point where I annoyed people with how many questions I asked. Would always question my father. Also, was an entrepreneur. Started a business that he continued to run, and we've gone into it at certain points as well in the family business. So naturally, the entrepreneurial gene is kind of in our family. But I used to question everything he said and did to the point where I would frustrate him. But my parents, my parents encouraged that. They told us, think for yourself. Be curious. Ask why. Ask how you can do it better. They also encouraged us to be authentic and be ourselves. So they let us do whatever, anything that we were really passionate about. Sometimes to a fault, we would, something got a little bit harder. We didn't like it. We, changed and then move on to something else. So I did a little bit of everything. Was big into sports. Soccer, baseball, and golf were my go-tos. But I was also just very, I like to explore a lot, run around through the forest, build tree houses as a kid, all that sort of stuff. And then growing up through like middle school and so forth, my entrepreneurial gene started to come out more. Would go door to door shoveling driveways, cutting lawns, lemonade stands. My mom told me a story fairly recently that I forgot about, and that I used to do these garage sales, and I would set up in the front of the house in the summertime when I was off school and sell little trinkets that I had in the house. Well, eventually, when I started running out of the stuff that I was selling, I started to go in the basement and my siblings' room, take their stuff, sell their stuff, and then when they asked where it went, I would pretend I didn't know. And so yeah, she reminded me of that recently. So yeah, always been an entrepreneur. Always look for ways to I don't know, to provide a service to people, to help, and that sort of stuff. So that kind of carried through into university, and now where I am today.
So I want to ask, when did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Is this your first company?
Uh, no, not my first. Natural. Well, I guess first on my independent endeavor with my co-founders, who are my friends. I guess we'll get into that a little bit after. But I have opened up new business verticals. As I said, I went into the family business for a while. Right after university, I went right into the family business. We're in the commercial cleaning industry, and right from the start, started from the bottom, worked my way up, but started to try and find efficiencies and how we can bring in other services to to complement the ecosystem. So I was fortunate that I got to kind of pursue some endeavors, obviously under the guidance of senior management, but I was allowed to kind of start up little ventures on the side. And a few are still running to this day, and we continue to kind of evolve that. But in terms of branching out and doing something kind of independently, not related to what I've done in the past, this would probably be my first big foray into a startup, and one of this magnitude, obviously.
So I like to say opportunity cost is infinite. And you're working, doing all these other things, these other things. And what made you decide that this was the opportunity for you? You're going to take the leap into entrepreneurship with this idea.
I love this question, by the way, because I often bring up opportunity cost a lot with my team, and I always say, what are we sacrificing to do this? And it's such a hard question because you don't really know. I mean, I could have stayed and kept doing what I was doing with the family business, and but yeah, just something about this. It felt like this issue we're trying to solve is bigger than just making an app to provide people with a service and make some money. Like, it felt like this was an inherent issue that was just starting to grow out of control. And a multitude of things. Again, it's what's going on to social media, but also transparency, objectivity, letting people be authentically themselves. There's a whole lot of things that encapsulated. It took a while to really get it to the point where it is. Myself and one of my co-founders, Ricky, he really helped shape it from the early days when it started just an idea, one small problem, and then it really started to evolve. But why we pursue this now is just seeing like what's been happening, obviously in the world in general, in the US and all over. And big tech being in front of Congress all the time, all these sorts of things. We just said, you know what, now is the time. I'm also fairly on the younger side. I just turned 30, don't have kids. So I figured now's a chance where I can do something a little bit riskier and not be too worried. So yeah, it felt like the right time. And I just said, you know what, we have some free time on our hands because of COVID. Let's just start moving and figure it out as we go. And that's kind of how we got to where we are today.
And you say finding the right co-founders and the first key members of your team can be crucial. And I've heard of many startups who failed because they found the wrong. How did this work? Did your co-founders come naturally because you're all discussing the idea and you decided to work together? Did one of you have the idea and approach the others? How did you know this was the team that was going to move it forward?
So the idea kind of started to kind of take a step back to the idea first came about early 2018, but it was a little bit different. We wanted to find some gamification of how to crowdsource ideas and theories and predictions and all that sort of stuff. And when I was thinking about this, I called my best friend, Ricky Liordi, co-founder as well. So I gave him a call and I said, I have this idea. I think it's amazing, as everyone does who has a startup. I told him about it and he said, okay, there's something here, but I think you're getting a little ahead of yourself. Let's take it a step back. And we boiled it down to what the problem we're trying to solve is and how we can scale it and all that. Now, it was early 2018, so it kind of went by the wayside because naturally our careers kept going. It didn't feel right. We didn't start it, but me and him kept talking about it. We had, interest in it, and early 2020, it just started to come up again organically and thinking about, okay, this is still an issue, but it's a bigger issue now. How can we do something about it? And, Ricky and I said, like, what do we have to lose? Let's just start it and figure it out from there. So we kind of came up with a little bit, vetted the idea out more, wireframed did the flow, see if it's scalable and buildable. And from there, we actually have another friend, David Banwat, really one of our best friends. We said, you know what, let's tell him the idea as well. Let's see what he thinks. We kind of the three of us have done everything together for the past decade, I would say. He loved it. Three very opinionated guys creating a platform that you can share opinions and have discourse and debate. Naturally, we all got excited about it. And that's kind of how we found our founding team. But the only downside was none of us are technical founders, which we obviously had to find someone who is super talented, has a similar vision to us, and can get this vision to a reality. So it took us a little while. I had the help of a friend who works in kind of like tech recruiting, help us look for someone, and we got super fortunate and found our now CTO, who's an absolute wizard at what he does. Loves the idea. It had the same issues, and it just was a natural fit. So that was kind of our founding team. As I said, we're at 7 now. So a couple more came on board. Our front end has been incredible at getting it to where it is, and our head of communications helps keep us all in line, making sure we're all speaking the same language. So yeah, we're really like a core of 7. I consider all of them kind of part of the founding team, and it's been a fantastic journey working with them so far.
So let's get into Cast. So, we kind of vaguely talked about it being, the voice of public opinion. What is Cast?
So Cast, in essence, of what the app does is essentially it's social polling. So we want to create a social media platform that allows people to share thoughts, ideas, opinions, debates, kind of anything you would write on a text-based platform. I don't like to bring up people I consider competitors, but like a Twitter or Reddit, you can share whatever you want around any interest or topic. And the difference of what we do is everything that gets posted is attached to like a poll or a question. It could be A, B, it could be multiple choice, anywhere between 1 and 4 options to share how you think. So essentially, we're leveraging social polling, but to take it a step further, we also show the demographics of what people think. So a lot of social media platforms have voting functions as a product within their or feature within their platforms. We made our whole platform that specific feature. And why we did that is we feel that creates less friction to participation. And what that means is people can now become active contributors rather than passive consumers. A statistic that I've actually been made aware of more recently is Twitter has 300 odd million monthly active users, but the majority of content is generated from 1% of their user base. The rest are kind of consumers. Yeah, they still share it, retweet it, like it, but that's that's not really active contribution, what we consider it. So sharing something might mean you're interested in it, but doesn't necessarily mean you agree, doesn't necessarily mean you agree with the entire thing. So we wanted to boil it down even further and allow people to participate and actually put an input in and share what their opinion is, hopefully driving a bigger representation of what the population of users in the world think in general.
So I understand poll or question. Is the question a yes or no question, or the question could be open-ended?
It can be, to be honest, whatever you like. What we try for and what we encourage users to do is ask a question as neutrally as possible. Try not to say, Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player. Do you agree, yes or no? More so, okay, do you think Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player, or do you think LeBron James is the greatest basketball player? We try to ask people to ask it neutrally and let people think for themselves. The reason we do this is, as I mentioned, you can see demographic data of the voters, but you can't see that until you vote. So how the app works is we lay out a question, like I just said, is who's the greatest basketball player of all time? Michael Jordan, LeBron James. It gives you the options. You can vote on either, or you can say other, and then you get to see the comments, and then you get to see the demographics. So what we believe this does is it encourages you to, one, think for yourself, be curious, formulate your own opinion. You're not swayed by the comment section. You're not swayed by the most popular percentage of the vote. You have to think for yourself and contribute to the conversation. And that allows for a more accurate depiction of what people really think. And it avoids things like groupthink and confirmation bias and all that sort of stuff.
So the way you said it, it sounds like the company poses the questions versus the consumers.
No, sorry. The user, it's all user generated content. We have obviously a Cast account that kind of posts the topics of the day, stuff like that. It's really relevant to what's going on in the world. But majority of 99% of content generated is user generated content. So if anybody goes on the platform and searches at George, they can see things that I'm curious about. I ask things that vary from human behavior to space to finance, startup related, sports, a little bit of everything. You can honestly ask what your heart desires. Obviously, going back to the first point, as long as it's not something that's overtly controversial, offside, certain things that violate naturally terms of service and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a similar question would be, everyone loves or hates Elon Musk, so you can put love or hate.
Exactly.
Why? Because, is he a hero or a heel or somewhere in between?
Yeah.
It's funny how people are polarized to those things, and by putting those out, you do get an interaction. How are you finding engagement?
So as I mentioned early on, we've been in a closed beta up until this point, moving to an open beta, and to be honest, as somebody's first foray into tech, I feel very encouraged by it. The numbers and the metrics that I'm seeing in the back end indicate that engagement and retention is very high. Our average time per user right now far exceeds the Reddits and the Twitters of the world, which I'm obviously taking with a grain of salt. It's early days. For me, I don't like to look at the good stuff. I want to find out, okay, what are we missing? What's going wrong here? Which is why we reach out to users on a daily basis to say, okay, what should we improve? What don't you like? What are we missing here? And a lot of the stuff that's being driven in production is based on user feedback. But overall, the feedback has been extremely positive, which is really encouraging to us, because it just validates the fact that we're not the only ones in the camp that feel that objectivity needs to be brought back to social media, removing friction of participation, allowing for honesty and authentic conversations. So clearly a lot of people feel the same way we do. So that's been super encouraging. And yeah, we're getting ready to now we're in the open beta, and we're getting very close, probably in the next week or so, to launch on the app stores, and hopefully the trend continues.
So now that you're in open beta, who is Cast aimed at? Like, who should go and download it right now?
Anybody and everybody is the easy answer, obviously. But truthfully, it's for everyone. You can ask anything from, do you like peanut butter and jelly, to what are your thoughts on Bitcoin? How do you feel about stuff going on in politics in the United States? It caters to everybody. We want to remove friction entirely from any age, any demographic, any culture, any language. Anybody can participate. I would say our target demographic would be people that are just super curious. Maybe it's a student in high school, university, wants to know about what some trends are, what the best Netflix show is. Someone in university conducting a research paper who wants to see more of what a certain demographic thinks. Could be someone sitting on their couch at home, watching The Bachelor, thinking, who's going to get the rose tonight? It kind of pertains to anybody. You can really find anything. You can ask anything you're passionate about, but you can also find a community of people who are also super passionate about the same things you are. So we try to drive people to related topics, trends, tags, all that sort of stuff, and let people interact and find like-minded people. Maybe not like-minded in the sense of, again, avoiding the confirmation bias, but similar interests, and letting them kind of, partake in those conversations.
And why would I download Cast versus just Googling something?
Great question. Google obviously can give you access to anything your heart desires, but for myself, the reason that I choose Cast over something else, over Google, let's take travel, for instance. I'm going to be staying in downtown Toronto, and I'm a backpacker. I'm looking for the best hostel. Maybe Toronto has 4 hostels. I can go on Hostel World, I can go on TripAdvisor, and I can search, and I can see which one has the highest stars. But how do I know who's put the most ratings in? How do I know that, if I'm a 30-year-old, how do I know that it's a bunch of 30-year-olds giving it 5 stars, not a bunch of 18-year-olds or, a bunch of 50-year-olds? Everybody has different interests. So when you search something on the internet and you want to find an opinion, it's hard to discern who thinks a certain way, because they don't do a great job of aggregating the information for the user to consume. It's not super transparent. So you can see star ratings and reviews, but I don't personally have time to sift through all these reviews, read them all, and find the good ones and find people who I correlate to. We try to do all of that for you. We try to say, okay, I'm curious about this. Let me see what other people think. And I want to see kind of who thinks this way in my cohort group, or what do other people think from different demographics, that sort of stuff. So to us, that's why Cast is a lot more valuable, and it can help you get a little bit more behind the scenes of answers and really understand why X is the best answer or the best solution.
Yeah, putting context around is important, and potentially local context or feedback from people who've been there. So your hostel example is a good one, because, if you're 20 to 30, you may give it a high rating, and 30 to 40, you might give it a lower rating. And that's because it's very active, loud, social, and maybe above a certain age, you're just looking for a place to sleep rather than people to meet. So you want to try and figure out which one is the right one for you. That makes a lot of sense. We talked a little bit about why. On your website, I went through it, and under the About page, it has an interesting question, and I'm going to ask you, when is Cast?
Ooh, that's a good one. And it's funny. We actually, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, we just recently updated the site to move over to putting the download links on it. So you actually caught it just before it switched, and a lot of this stuff was written in the early days. So
Okay.
it's great to discuss it again. When is cast? So why we put the when is because cast is timeless. Um, it can be immediate. It can be future forward looking. It can be historic looking. The debates can be as old as time, and the questions can be anything that's ever happened between our history and what hasn't happened in our future. I mean, you can ask the debate, what was a greater invention, fire or the wheel? You can go and say, is SpaceX and Elon going to colonize Mars? I think that was a question actually either I posed or someone posed recently. Elon said he wants to colonize Mars by 20, or put the first human on Mars by 2025, I believe. So someone asked, the options were, is he crazy? Will he do it? Or, is this impossible? And it's really great to see the feedback and see how people think. But yeah, when cast is hopefully forever. That's what we're hoping for.
And the other one that was interesting was where is cast?
Where is cast? So cast is how we try to uh, get cast down, drill it down, is we want people to be able to see what's going on, as you said, like in their community, more locally. So when you create a cast, you can tag it so it sticks kind of locally to your city, your country, or it can go global. So if I'm about to go travel to London and I want to know what the best site to see, I have limited time. Should I go see Buckingham Palace? Should I see the Shard? Should I see the Eye? Whatever it is, you can place it in a different location, and you can kind of crowdsource opinions, and you can ask really anything. So it's local, but it's also global. So it really knows no borders. But we drill it down so that somebody in, say, Japan is not getting questions from Mexico, for instance, that aren't super relevant. We want it to be relevant to what you're interested in, but also locally relevant. And then if you want to explore farther and see what's going on elsewhere in the world, I mean, you can kind of jump around and see the different regions.
And we mentioned this, but healthy debate seems to have disappeared, and free speech, whatever you want to call it, is looking for a place to hide. We're now in the age of cancel culture. If you say something that's politically incorrect, even if it's just to stimulate conversation, a lot of bad things can happen. So how is Cass going to try and avoid this, or are they?
So I guess one thing I should explain as well is the main functions of CAST, because it is an anonymous based voting based social media platform. And why we do this is the main reason is it removes the friction of participation, but also we don't go entirely anonymous. Every input that a user has to type in themselves, whether it's to ask a question or write a comment, your name is attached to it. So why we do that and not make it entirely anonymous is mainly around the reason of just putting a little bit of friction in place of letting people blindly attack people, say stuff without any recourse. While we want people to be authentic and be themselves and not be scared to ask questions, we also want to eliminate the possibility that people start posting really crazy out there theories or questions and just stirring stuff up for the sake of stirring stuff up. But to answer your question, how we intend to kind of reduce the likelihood of cancel culture and all that stuff is, again, the biggest thing is removing the friction of participation. And it's as little as somebody posting something that they misworded, they got misrepresented, and they get piled on by no fault of their own. We want to try to eliminate that. We also want to remove the possibility that people get tied to their opinions that have changed. One of the great features with Cast is you can go back and change your vote on a question at any point. We never lock your vote in, except for casts that expire timely. That's just no one's vote can be changed for obvious reasons. But if I go vote today, the Elon Musk debate, and is Elon Musk a genius or is he a madman? Maybe today I think he's a madman because of what he's doing. Maybe he's going and buying crypto is crazy. Maybe a couple of years from now, I said, you know what? Now that I've seen the facts, I actually think he's a very smart guy. One of the biggest things with cancel culture that is a pervasive problem is a lot of people try to go back in time and kind of get you on stuff you've said. Now, again, if you said something over the line, offside, completely derogatory, whatever it is, that is obviously a problem. That is an issue. But people evolve, people change. Back to the point you said first, you're always looking at how to find new ideas. How is my thinking correct? We shouldn't always be tied to what we thought back in the day. So even though it's entirely anonymous and the odds of that happening are incredibly slim, we still want to give people the opportunity to go and say, you know what, I have new information now. My opinion has changed. I want to go and change my opinion. Because often people try to marry you to the ideas you've had in the past and try to say, well, you still believe this, you're a bad person for believing this. Well, maybe I didn't have time to go delete that comment that I don't believe anymore. Why am I still attached to this? Maybe I said it without thinking one day. And that's why that's how we're also trying to resolve the problems of cancel culture and the friction of participation.
Yeah, it's hard, I think, when you want everyone to be able to participate, but at the same time, you're trying to either have a serious discussion or a funny discussion, and maybe not necessarily blur the lines. If you're having a funny discussion, not have someone come along and take it super serious, and if you're having a serious discussion, not to get completely derailed. And I think of things like when popular vote goes bad, I call it the tyranny of the masses. I remember Bodie McBoatface, and I can't remember which city that did a bridge naming contest, and the popular vote was Chuck Norris. And Austin tried to name its waste management system, and the popular vote was Limp Bizkit's frontman Fred Durst too for their. So and either with Mountain Dew learned this lesson with a win a concert for Taylor Swift, and the internet took over, and the winning school was School for the Deaf. So how do do you separate serious from fun? Should it be separate? Who decides?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the beauty, there's some great examples. I actually didn't know the Taylor Swift one. And that is, I mean, I think it's funny. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but that is kind of funny.
I think they're hilarious. Don't get me wrong. These discussions should take place. But, if you're a city looking for a popular vote, should you be doing this? Should you not be doing this? If you're looking for a serious discussion, how do you, take Bodie McBoatface off the table?
I mean, that's the nature with anything when you crowdsource. Crowdsourcing, it's great because it drives engagement, but it can backfire pretty quickly. And then further to that point, if it does turn out to be like that, your hands are tied. I mean, if you put that out there for people to vote, they vote, and then you repeal it saying, we can't allow our vote to be called this. Well, that's kind of a tricky situation. You put that out there, you're putting a democratic vote out, let people speak, and then you're telling them, well, no, your opinion's wrong. So it's a fine line too. You got to be a little bit careful with those. But I mean, I'm happy they happened. It's definitely.
But didn't you just describe Brexit?
Oh, fair.
I'm waiting for the third vote to be called because we voted wrong or they voted wrong.
Yeah.
So your app just launched. It's about to launch.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about the process? What worked? What didn't? Any advice for those who are going to launch an app? You always project that it'll be ready and live at a certain point. Can you tell us a little bit about, what others can expect? What worked? What didn't?
For sure. As I said too, take this with a grain of salt because it's my first foray into tech. I will say that in terms of an executive leadership role and being the chief executive officer, my past experience working in the family corporation and other ventures I've started from a leadership perspective and strategy, decision making, and kind of the creative vision, I have a lot of experience in that side. But yeah, with a technology startup, this is my first go at it, as well as my co-founders. So it was a big learning experience. One of the best experiences I've ever had in my life so far. But it's being a startup. The best part is you can do whatever you want and start wherever you want. We literally, when you got our CTO, we sat down and said, okay, well, what's the first order of business? Where do we start? We had no idea. We had no idea what brick to place in the ground first, but we all came to the decision that, we're not gonna overly whiteboard this. We're not gonna create a 6-month strategy. We're gonna say, okay, what's the most important thing to do? We're gonna put that brick in the ground, and we're gonna have a couple ahead of us that we want to put in, but we're gonna be agile and we're gonna be dynamic. So the whole process for us, in hindsight, a little bit chaotic. So we probably should have had a little more strategy, but we got lucky, knock on wood. And we just kind of, like I said, we just went with it. So what we did was start moving, we hired our front end because we realized we needed to build the front end, the user interface. But from that point on, everything we did was based on discussion and conversation. So, I meet with my founders, we talk and say, okay, what features do we need to roll out? What is mission critical? What do we absolutely have to have for a beta so we can test? What can get pushed to the open beta or right after launch? And those lists have evolved. The whole process has been an evolution. There hasn't been a time where we said we have to do this point and we have to do that point. It's been a little bit of jumping. Again, that might not be the most efficient. So take my advice with a grain of salt. But the best advice I can give to anybody is you just move. Motion is the most important thing. Mike Tyson I think it's Mike Tyson has a famous saying that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So it doesn't have to be a literal punch, but even a minor hiccup, a bug, something that pops up, it really shifts your plan. So if you're too married to a certain vision and a path, that thing that derails you can be discouraging. It can make you kind of question where you're going. So the most important thing is know what your vision is. Be a little bit adaptable in that, a little bit malleable, but have the vision and just kind of evolve as you go and try to find the path of least resistance there. But in terms of the timelines and all that sort of stuff, I will say that we intended to launch the beta in early December, kind of end of November. We missed that target by a couple of weeks just because we had to redesign some things that we didn't really think out super well. And then we did get our first alpha version second week-ish, third week of December. So about 3 weeks behind schedule. We did launch 3 weeks behind schedule. We adapted our beta date to the middle of January. We hit that date. We had our open beta date for March 1st. We delayed obviously that by a couple of days. But for the most part, our CTO and our entire engineering team, our front end, have kind of said how surprised they are at 3 guys with no technical experience were able to hit these deadlines and milestones, which is not to toot my own horn or anything like that. It's been a team effort the entire way, but it's been a learning curve. But as long as you're adaptable, don't get discouraged when something goes wrong. Just keep moving. That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah, it can be complicated trying to get stuff approved and whatnot. And I've heard a lot of nightmares, and I shared some stories with you before we actually met. Everyone talks about hustle, and I know you're just in open beta mode now, and you're about to be live in the next couple of days on the App Store. But what are you doing? What's your plan to get traction and build your audience?
So what we've decided from the beginning, and what we intend to do is bootstrap everything. We launched this startup as an idea that we had. We bootstrapped it with our own funds, and we said, we're going to try and operate as lean as possible. So what we want to do is continue that mentality. We want to stay lean. We don't want to be a company that thinks, so you got to spend X on marketing and this on. We don't want to spend money where we don't have to. So to this point, all our growth has been organic by way of our own networks. So myself, my co-founder, Ricky, who's the chief marketing officer, and David, who's the chief information officer. All of us have just reached out to our own networks. It started as family and friends. We said, hey guys, test this app, but let us know what you think. It snowballed a little from there. And then we opened it up to our bigger friend network and said, here, take a look. And then we just kind of extended. And now it's at the point where we have users and friends messaging us saying, hey, can I get a download link? Can I send it out to this person? This person's interested. We have people DMing us on Instagram and Twitter and messaging us on LinkedIn on a daily basis. So a lot of it's been organic, and we intend to continue that. Money is a blessing and a curse, I think, in a startup. It can let you scale infinitely, but it can also mask problems because you can throw money at a problem, like marketing. If we want to spend a lot of money and get downloads, that'll show a little bit of growth. But what's our retention like then? Are we getting the right cohorts in that are truly interested and adapting for them? We need to. One thing I believe is you need to build for your early adopters, the people that are on at day one. If that's our close friends, that's awesome. If it's not, and it's a random group that happen to like it more than our friends, then we adapt for them. So we just believe from the beginning to bootstrap it, be as lean as possible, spend as little on marketing for the time being. But as we evolve in the App Store, it's, trying different things, reaching out to various blogs, publications, presses, friend networks, debate clubs, just getting creative and reaching out to as many people as possible.
You have your own podcast, the Pals podcast.
That's
Is that what it's
correct.
called? Yeah.
Yep.
Can you tell us about it?
Sure. So it's kind of the precursor to how Cast started, and not no relation to them, but my co-founder of Cast, Ricky, my best friend now for well over a decade. We met in the first year of university at Western. We were in Florida in late December of 2019, and we were moving to 2020. We both about to turn 30, and we said naively and kind of a little bit, maybe our ego speaking, saying, we should do something that we can share our knowledge and experience with people. We wanted to kind of give people hopefully younger than us, lessons and feedback from what we've learned over our 20s. Got a lot of experience from a career perspective, travel, adventure, ups and downs, all that sort of stuff. So we said, you know what, let's start a podcast. How hard can it be? I had a bit of experience in the music side. I had a bit of experience in the music side. I was came up through like the music program in middle school, played drums through high school. So produced a little bit of music in university. So I was like, okay, I can do the technical side. Can't be that difficult. Turns out it's a little bit difficult at times. But and then Ricky was like, you know what? I'll work on getting guests and all that stuff. So it started as a little passion project. We wanted to record once a week for the year. So 52 episodes. We've actually just hit our 101st episode. So we ended up moving to like 2 a week, sometimes 3 a week. And we got super fortunate and just got really lucky, I guess, getting some amazing guests. We had Olympians, Toronto sports athletes, NHLers, musicians. The list goes on, and super grateful for it, but could not have imagined getting to where it is.
And people can find it by searching for the Pals podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Yeah, the Pals podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube. The Pals podcast. The logo is navy blue, and you'll see both our faces. I had long hair at the time, so it looks a little different. But yeah, the Pals podcast, and hosted by George and Ricky.
And you mentioned Western. That explains the purple. Go Stanks.
Yeah, go Mustangs. It's actually a coincidence. So we didn't actually plan Cast to be purple for that reason. I can actually, this is kind of top secret, but I can explain why we did purple. We Cast, this vision is to bring people back to the middle, like just not politically in anything, just bring them to the middle and have a conversation right here in the middle. So, I mean, naturally speaking, blue and red is a color of politics. You mix blue and red, you get purple. So
that's great.
Yeah.
It's a great explanation. You have a team. We talked about you being remotely early on. What tools would you recommend that you really think are great or trending?
So what I would recommend or trending. So this one I might not be the best person to answer because as I said earlier, like a lot of our experience is being service face-to-face, all that stuff. So we have had to adapt and learn as we go. Obviously, the video platforms, everyone is aware of them, the Zooms, the Skypes, the Google Meets, all that sort of stuff. How we collaborate and what we found super, super useful is we use G Suite for everything. From email to Google Meet, all that. I find G Suite, the whole ecosystem is there. I'm somebody who's I wouldn't consider myself like married to one platform. I'm kind of like agnostic, but I like the convenience of having one button and it gives me everything. So we've used Google for all our needs, for chat, for Meet, for planning, for coordinating everything that we can, our domains, all of that stuff. So it's all housed under that stuff. I use some other platforms not related to Cast, more related to the other companies that I'm involved with. But Google's the main one for us. Kind of keep it simple and easy that way.
What's your favorite book for entrepreneurs?
So I love this question. It was actually one that I saw and I had a tough time answering it because one of my favorite things to do, honestly, is read. And that's one of the blessings, I think. The pandemic's obviously been terrible and we are aware of that. But one of the things that it gave me time to do is I spent 2020 just reading. I would sit on my couch and read all day. Favorite books for entrepreneurs. So this one, it's changed a little bit, but the one my favorite that I actually read very recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago, was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Great
It's been on
book.
my bookshelf for a long time. Just coincidentally happened to pick it up. And that would be my number one book. It actually is my number one book because it resonated a lot with me. Part of the backstory of when Cass was founded, I was actually on a backpacking trip. And in 2018, I decided to take some time off of work just to backpack. And uh, I actually was in the part of Spain that they reference at the start of the book, in like Andalusia, in Tarifa. I actually did a road trip to that area just by chance. And
Nice.
much of the characters' actions in the book kind of resonated with me because I felt like it. So I read that, and I love the story of chasing your personal legend. And I think everybody should do it. I think it's one of the most gratifying things in life. So that book really resonated with me. I think the other one I said was Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, one of my favorite authors, very bright guy. And one other one that I read recently as well, Too Soon Old, Too Late Smart by Gordon Livingston. Terrific book.
Yeah, there's a couple there. The last two I haven't read, so I'll put them on my list. But The Alchemist is actually the book I've given away to people the most. So
Oh,
highly
yeah.
recommend it. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I had it for a long time. Obviously, see it as a bestseller, but and I have a habit of just going on Amazon and buying books, even if I don't have time to read them. So yeah, it was on my shelf for a while. Picked it up a couple weeks ago by chance. Terrific, terrific read.
What resources and communities do you recommend? Outside of Toronto Starts, what do you use to keep you abreast?
Toronto Starts is my go-to for sure. All the YouTube videos, 100%. Highly recommend everyone subscribe as well. But I'm a big listen to podcasts a lot, podcasts and kind of newsletters. But lately, the last, I would say, year, the two people that I consume the most information from, I just find them to be very, very, I don't know if wise is the right word, but just very thoughtful in what they share. The first one is Paul Graham, who's the founder of Y Combinator. He he writes essays that he posts on his website, paulgraham.com. Some of them are very long, some are short, but they revolve around a little bit of everything. His personal history, starting a startup, just a good mix of stuff for an entrepreneur. Even if you're not really in the tech space, but you're looking to start a new business venture, I think they're terrific, super helpful. And he's somebody who, as a founder of Y Combinator, he sees tens of thousands of startups on a regular basis. So I think no one better to learn from than him. The second person who I truly, truly really like to follow is Naval Ravikant. For those who don't know, he's the founder of AngelList and like a very active angel and seed investor. I would consider him almost like a modern day philosopher. Very thoughtful, very articulate with his words, and yeah, some great advice, life advice, as well as kind of business and investing advice, all that sort of stuff. It's just very broad and applies to everybody.
So what's next for you and for Cast?
What is next? It's a hard question to answer. What I hope is next is that we move to we launch and we change the world. That honestly, that's what I hope is next. I hope that we can create a platform that truly removes friction to participation in online conversations, removes social pressures, removes echo chambers, removes confirmation bias, removes cancel culture, removes hate, removes bigotry, all these things that are pervasive issues. That's what we want to see. We just want to create a place for people to share ideas and be curious. That's what I hope is next. Now, what is actually next is a lot of hard work. The nose of the grindstone, and just trying to talk to as many users as possible, trying to bring out the best products possible, and just learning on a daily basis. So that's really what's next. But yeah, we hope to bring some good back to social media.
And we've got a couple of questions here in the chat room, but the one that they want to know is what can we expect from Cast in the next 6 months?
In the next 6 months. So, I mean, obviously being kind of in launch mode right now and live, what we intend to do is just iterate on the current product and just find ways to make it, improve the UI, the UX, see where the bottlenecks are, find out how to improve on that. We also want to roll out new features. We think that we have a plan for a bit of an ecosystem to create around Cast on the platform itself. We want to roll those out in pretty short order. but a lot of it's going to come from user feedback. So the more users we get on, the more feedback we get, and then we kind of determine the priority sequence of what should come out. But we will be rolling out new features in the next 6 months, and hope to kind of do our first major venture round in the early summer, kind of early late summer, and then just scale, just get in front of as many people as possible, because we think that there's a lot more people out there like us that are curious and have this problem as well they want to solve.
Yeah, if that question was from the founder of Anime Universe, I'm sure he wants to get on there and ask,
Wow.
who's your favorite anime character and shows, and what's the most popular and whatnot.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Happy to get you on anytime. You can, and also anyone with the questions too, if you want to reach out to me as well, email, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is, I'm happy to answer any questions. Obviously, following these too.
And just for that, I gave him a shout out because if you show up and I know who you are, I'll give you a shout out on these. Shout out your company. That's great. So if people want to find out more about Cast, where do they go?
If you want to find out more about Cast, the best place to go is our website, www.createyourcast.com. I will say, I made a comment that it has been updated. It's either been updated yesterday or it's updated tomorrow. And I apologize if it's still the same place to get access. You can go to our LinkedIn. It's just Cast, but it's LinkedIn /company/Cast App Inc. That's our business name. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Pretty much anywhere.
That's great. And if people want to connect with you, should they reach out on LinkedIn? Is there an email?
The best place to reach me, obviously, LinkedIn. George Boutsalis, Boutsalis. Find me on Twitter as well. I'm kind of active there. I'm more active on Cast these days, a little more objective. So, if you want to email me, george@castapp.ca. Happy to answer any emails as well.
So I really appreciate you taking the time today, George, to answer our questions and be part of Startup Talk. The audience here says it's pretty cool. They love the idea. Thank you again for showing up in the questions and to share some of the struggles and some of the progress you've been making building an app here in the Toronto ecosystem.
Thanks a lot, Craig. I really appreciate the time. This was a lot of fun. To anybody I can be assistance of in the future, I'm an open book and open communication. So don't hesitate to reach out.
And we'll talk again soon. Thanks.